I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Doug Hardwick, CEO of Quantum Expeditions, with us. Doug, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Ashton, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Likewise, excited to dive into Bitcoin mining operations and operations within the US of A as well. Excited to hear all about the latest updates with that. I would love to start off our conversation by hearing a little bit about the current operations with Quantum Expedition, where and what you guys are doing, and then we can dive into all the details.
You bet. Yeah, we're currently mining with 188 miners, 144 S19 S19s, and then another 44 S21s. We're actually in a hosted space right now, which was really a great opportunity that we had at the time while we get our home base laid out and built up. So it's been an interesting journey as we started. So yeah, we've got those miners up and running, and then we're also building in for an expansion into the Permian Basin on gas.
Very interesting. So this operation it's all in West Texas at the moment?
Pretty close. Pretty close. It's within the continental United States for sure. We're kind of keeping our first location. It's a temporary location. We've kind of kept it under wraps, the exact location, but since it is a temporary situation.
Great. So a little bit about your history. I believe you were in oil and gas before, and then that trickled into Bitcoin mining. Maybe you could talk about that transition a little bit.
Yeah, I've been in the oil and gas industry for over 20 years, and I got a call about 3 years ago, last month actually, from Oz Sultan, and asking if I had any flared gas, and I was like, well, I don't, but I know where it's at, and so that started our journey together. I was just out there going to find them some energy. But as we worked together, and really, it's kind of interesting how it kind of all worked out. But next thing I know, I'm the CEO of the company.
So, in the same natural resources that that companies are using for oil and gas, you were actually able to tap into that, or the natural gas part of it, for Bitcoin mining as well?
Right. So when we first started, we were talking to some some of the largest oil and gas companies, in West Texas. And one site was actually in New Mexico. But the challenge is with these billion-dollar operators, eventually they're going to have a pipeline to that gas well so they could sell the gas. And we didn't want to move, every 12 months. The most they would give you is a 12-month contract. And so you're going to lose a month or two every year moving. And that just didn't seem like a very good idea. And so while we're doing our research and all, was introduced to a guy through the oil and gas industry, had a friend that had a mining location. They're, expanding 10, 20 megawatts, but they had their first location with 0.7 is as big as it would go with a small 20-foot trailer. And we were actually offered that. And so that's what we did, is we moved into there, bought some miners, got right to mining, and that was, we bought those miners in November of last year. And at the bottom of the market, actually, which is a very unique opportunity. And so we went ahead, bought those, moved in. We were mining before Christmas, which was, fantastic. And because we felt that was a better opportunity than buying some S21s and waiting a few months and so on. So we did a lot of market and analysis and research and due diligence and all the things it takes to determine when's the right time to pull the trigger. And that just seemed like the best opportunity. In the meantime, we also got our power purchase agreement in West Texas for 5 megawatts. And but we didn't move there because we could, just move into one that's already built and not have to pay any money for infrastructure. That's saved us six figures. Easy,
Wow.
right? So you just, things move along, just when you think you're going to go down through this door, it gets shut on you. And next thing you know, you've got a better opportunity down the hall. And that's kind of the way our company has been running quite well. So in the meantime, I'm still networking and trying to find that oil and gas guy who doesn't think, Bitcoin is some scam or pyramid scheme or something, that most people out there believe even today, not just oil and gas. But, so now we have this guy. Eventually, 2 years later, we find a guy in West Texas who had just bought a field from a guy that passed away years ago, hasn't been operating at all. And but in the past, all they've done is just produce the oil and flared the gas. And so his brother tried getting him into buying Bitcoin years ago. He's got a wallet and never used it. And so, he had that really close relationship to Bitcoin, but he never really pulled the trigger. And so when I was introduced to him, he's a small operator and he's just going to vent the gas. And that's the challenge that they have in West Texas is there's so much production. There's more gas than they've got pipeline to get it to market. And so the only opportunity these small operators have is just to flare it or vent it, right? And we know now that by taking that gas, instead of flaring it, is put it through a generator and you can actually lower the emissions. And so I was showing this guy all the things that we could do and how we can do it. And the thing that he saw is, yeah, we're going to pay way below market for the natural gas, but it's money for him. And then we also will show him how to we're going to put a couple of machines in our container for him. So that way he can mine himself. And we're going to show him how to set all that up. We're going to help him set up cold storage. So that way he can do, what our mantra says is stay safe, stack sats and hodl. We're going to teach him how to be his own banker too.
Wow, that's really cool. And this sounds like a great opportunity that Quantum Expeditions has come across. So from what I understand, Texas has pretty affordable electricity with that purchase agreement. But in this case, you actually are utilizing the excess of the natural gas. And I'm not too familiar with the oil and gas industry, but from what I understand, the extra gas is flaring or it's just going up in smoke. And you're able to tap into that to actually mine Bitcoin in something that would have just been going to waste.
That's exactly it, right? And that's why we're able to pay below market for the gas also. Is, if they're just throwing it into the air, why not turn it into cash flow? And so that's what he also sees, and this is, part of the whole, what is quantum all about, right? We want that sustainable. We want to be friendly to the environment. That's very, very important to all of us. And so we know that by taking a flared, vented gas, that's just, methane into the air. That's worst case scenario, right? But instead of doing that, they get a permit to flare the gas. But we also know that if we take that gas instead of flaring it and running it through different equipment and then into a genset, that lowers the emissions as well. And so we're able to do a lot of things all under one umbrella. And that is, number one, is we're helping the environment by burning the gas properly. Number two is we're helping this, small oil and gas company become a stronger company by giving them another revenue stream. And number three is we're contributing to the entire Bitcoin ecosystem. And I think that's, when you put all that together, plus we're going to help orange pill some West Texas oil men. That ain't all bad.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great combination. And I think, just as you said, people that are outside of the industry, often they think, of some kind of scam, or they don't fully understand this new asset class yet. I think there's also a misunderstanding about the sustainability of Bitcoin mining and the fact
Oh
that
yeah.
Quantum Expeditions is able to tap into a fully sustainable energy source. And there's rumors out there that Bitcoin is taking up the most energy of any industry, and it's bad for the environment. But it sounds like it's the opposite. You're actually, doing the environment a favor in this case.
Yeah, we're coming up on Christmas, and I can tell you when I did the research, Christmas lights in 1 month use more electricity than Bitcoin mining
Wow.
in the
Holy,
States.
that's
So,
that's crazy.
and yeah, Christmas lights make you feel good and make the kids laugh and have fun, right? But this is actually contributing to people's livelihoods and, helping people uh, in a lot of different ways. So, yeah, Bitcoin does get a bad rap, and I don't think. Uh, so, for those of us who understand Bitcoin, we understand what we're doing, how we're contributing, and I don't think we've done a really good job of telling people the good news that Bitcoin brings to the whole electric grid system, right? So we've got grid stabilization. So, that's one of the benefits, demand response, so if there's a need, I mean, look, people that own Bitcoin mining companies were human, right? We've got grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, cousins, relatives, people, friends, family. And we don't want them to, in the summer of West Texas, sweltering hot. We don't want the hospitals and retirement communities not have electricity to keep them cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's that time that it's 100 plus degrees in West Texas, there's not enough electricity to go around. Well, with Bitcoin mining, we can shut down. It's almost like having a battery, the battery within the whole grid system, because instead of utilizing that energy, we can turn miners off and have that energy redirected to, hospitals and nursing homes and schools, homes, everybody that needs the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that part of that demand response is what I don't think a lot of people understand. The other thing, here in Texas, we have more wind turbines than any other state in the country. And from my understanding, recently we also became the biggest for solar energy as well. And so there are times when there's more energy out there than the grid needs. And so what we can do as miners is take use of that. And so by these windmills, instead of them just parking them, turning them off, they can keep them going, send that energy to a miner, and that way we're utilizing an idle asset, or what would have been an idle asset. So what's that, what good does that do? Well, it's not just the miner making money. It's also the grid system that's also earning an income off of a wind turbine that's moving, making money. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why, the Bitcoin mining companies in general should have a lower cost, because we're actually a huge contributor to the whole grid system.
Wow, that's very cool. And speaking of making money, you mentioned starting the operations around last November, before the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs and all the institutions driving billions into that. The Bitcoin price was significantly lower than it is now. I think maybe it was around 30,000 at the time, and 30 to 40 heading into the ETF. Now we're sitting at 90,000 here 1 year later. Can you talk about the profitability? There's so many variables in supply and demand, and when the price goes up, the competitiveness of mining goes up. How do you determine that when you started, and then as the price rises, and it gets more competitive, how do you stay profitable?
Yeah, so we saw recently a lot of these publicly traded mining companies, while the price of, and this is after the election, right? The price is going up, but then their stock price was going down. Well, that didn't make sense. But then if you go back and you look, well, they were reporting a loss. They were making huge losses in the third quarter. And that's because, you remember early in the second quarter, we had the halving, right? So now we're making half as much. And these companies are just loading up tons of miners to, their operations. And so what that does, it makes the difficulty higher, right? For mining. So when the difficulty goes up, then you got to have more power, more hash rate, if you will, to get the same amount of Bitcoin, right? So there's that balance that they have invested tons of money into brand new machines. And in my opinion, they also have very large offices. They have tons of people and what I call oak doors and marble floors that they're paying rent on, and they've got multi-million-dollar salaries to pay. And so you take that, their operational, as well as their debt service from all these things that they've bought and still have, their cost of doing business is so high. And so that's, a leading contributor, I believe, to why these companies during the time of plenty was not making much or none at all or losing money. So for our little company, the good news is, most of us, I think all of us, are working out of our house. We're putting in the sweat equity to build this company on the early stage. And I think that's really important. And when we go back and we do the analysis, and you'll see that in our reporting, is that we're actually still making money, even with our S19s and a few 21s. So, that's because we don't have a lot of expense. We don't have any debt at all. And so we don't have all that taken from our profit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why you're going to find our company is very strong, even for as little as we are.
Yeah, that's a great point about large operations. And we've seen great examples of crypto exchanges versus banks. And, they have 5% of the employees, and their profit numbers are much higher because they're not paying all those brick and mortar expenses that these large companies are. And when you start a new operation like Quantum, and you're running it lean, and you're working from home as well, obviously there is still capital expenditures of the miners and housing them somewhere, but you don't have to pay for all those extra employees and marble floors. That's a good thing. But of course, you want to expand as well. It might come to that, but most importantly is getting more miners, getting more Bitcoin mining power. So I'm guessing that's in the works. What is next for the expansion in growing it larger?
Yeah, great question. That's one of the beautiful things about what we're doing in West Texas and setting up in on the gas itself, because right now mining on the grid is good, right? You get good consistent power all the time, unless there's a storm. We've had one of those blow through and knock us out. But we also have in Texas, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but being in the oil and gas industry for 20 years, I understand that gas wells are not consistent. And so there's that fine balance that you have to have with, we know how much gas we need to make a megawatt of power. So now what we're doing right now, we've got the equipment on the ground going around testing all these different wells. We'll get all these reports together, and then we take all these reports to the genset supplier to determine exactly how much we can mine. And one of the things that figure out how to say it properly here. I mean, we're going to expand in a big way. We've got the plans. We know that it's going to take about 6,000 MCF to get an exahash of mining on the off-grid on the gas. So that's kind of our first step. And we've also got the power purchase agreement with 5 megawatts. And I mean, truth be told, we've been talking to AI people for a while. And so I think, you know, with AI, you need the uptime. You've got to have the guarantee uptime in order to get the AI contract. And I think that's probably going to be the nucleus of our, the power from our on-grid will probably be in that arena. Haven't made any definite plans on that yet, but, you know, we're in conversations with people. So, you know, we're going to be blended. I'm very confident, but, you know, and I've repeated this a million times, or at least 100, is that we don't just shoot from the hip. We will be cautious, and I'd rather err on the side of caution as opposed to just jumping in with 2 feet, not knowing what's at the bottom. So, you know, we take a real methodical approach. I mean, we did research for 2 years before we pulled the trigger, started mining. And I think that's really a testament to our company. And just because the door shuts, and especially now, you know, we keep saying this, is that a lot of it, people say you could just got lucky or whatever. And I and others in our group, all 3 of us, the founders, and our newest edition, which just got announced today. But we all believe in divine intervention as well. So I think that has a lot to do with, you know, not getting upset when we see a door closed. You know, we don't throw up our hands. We just say, okay, there's something better around the corner, and sure enough, there is. Mm-hmm. So we've been very fortunate all along the road, and you know, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the people that have, you know, our seed round and what that meant to our company, and then with the WeFunder and the people that have joined us on the WeFunder through a safe, and you know, for future equity is what they're looking for, and I think they're going to find it with us.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Doug. And I want to ask a few more questions about the WeFunder and the equity and getting involved while it's smaller. But I also want to ask about the future in America with the new Trump administration. Do you see that as a door opening that will make even more opportunities for Bitcoin mining? It seems like Trump wants Bitcoin made in America. He wants more hash power, probably, you know, more miners controlling Bitcoin inside of America. How do you think that administration over the next coming years might affect the Bitcoin mining industry and quantum?
From what I've been hearing on Spaces and, you know, through the different places, is everybody's excited about the new Trump administration when it comes to Bitcoin and mining, and really the whole crypto ecosystem. We've seen some, you know, yearly highs on all types of crypto, not just Bitcoin. And so I think that's going to really enhance the whole ecosystem, right? But I think Web3, it depends on who you talk to, but me personally, I think Web3, we're still early. You know, you see 90,000 and people are like, woohoo, you know, and dancing in the streets, popping champagne. But you know what? I think we've got a long way to go. You know, we've heard about 7-figure, you know, Bitcoin from a lot of different people. And I think that's in the cards. When it'll be, I don't know. You know, I did some AI analysis, and I realized, you know, if you had put $100,000 into Bitcoin 14 years ago, you'd be a multi-billionaire today. And so, you know, what's the next 14 years hold for Bitcoin? It's anybody's guess. But I think if the current administration structures it right, and I'm leaning to the side that I think he's going to get good advice. I don't think he's going to go at it alone. I know, many in me feel that sometimes Trump will shoot at the hip and just do things, but I think he's going to be a little bit more methodical. And I think we're going to move a lot further away from the fiat, like connectivity, because right now when you think Bitcoin, you think of, well, it's 90,000. You got a dollar figure in mind, right? When you think of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin really is a lot more than a dollar figure, and I think when people, and I don't know how long it's going to take for, those ideas to actually become two different ideas, as opposed to, okay, I got Bitcoin, I got money. There's going to be, I got Bitcoin and I got money, in a different sense. So anyway, there's a lot of, I think, changes, and I think we're going to be in a very, very fast track over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting times ahead, and 14 years is not a long time for a currency. And the next 14 years, again, is also not a lot of time. Even for Bitcoin miners, the mining rewards will still be here until 2140. So we're looking 100 plus years ahead. And even then, the transaction fees will continue to accrue revenues for miners to infinity and beyond. So the time frame is much more than just a decade and a bit. So yeah, I agree that I think we're early on, and we'll see how this Trump administration deals with it. But it seems optimistic based on the excitement in Bitcoin since the announcement on November 5th.
No.
It's all looking positive. So I hope that translates into more positivity for your team at Quantum as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
And now on the WeFunder and the capital that you've raised and plans for expansion, can you talk a little bit more about where you're at with that and how many people you've got involved, and if you're looking to get more people involved?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're still running. I think we're going to close up this round by April, unless it funds before then. But looking at the ticker, we're at 493,000 and some change. We have over 589 on the WeFunder, plus a few early seed investors, so we're about 600 total. And so when we hit 500,000, we did something to help give people a little bit, because the WeFunder is in a safe, which is simple agreement future equity. And so they really aren't going to get anything for a little while. So what we've done is we put together some merchandise. And so, if you invest up to 500, you get a hat, 1,000, you get a shirt and a hat, and so on. 2,500, you get a free ordinal. So that's really kind of cool. They're beautiful. But because ordinals have to be so small, we're also including a full-size print to go. So you get a high-res print and a PFP size ordinal. So that's pretty cool. And then once we hit 500,000, we're going to give everybody a free board game. And we hit $1 million, and the max on this round is 1.25 million. But if we hit 1 million or more, then we're going to do a rave in the desert. So because at the end of the day, the whole thought process of the WeFunder was bringing the community together, because most people can't afford to put $4 or $5 grand down for a miner, and then all the stuff it takes to hook it all up at home. And plus their electricity is usually too expensive to make money. So mining for the individual is kind of out of reach. And so, yeah, you can invest in, the $1 billion companies and get a stock in their company. But with us, it's a little more intimate. We're a little bit smaller. We really wanted to bring the opportunity to the individual investor that can't really mine, but wanted a more tighter community than just being part of a $1 billion company. And so what we're doing, you can get in for as little as $100. and you let that ride for a few years, and right now our evaluation's at 33 million, and when we make it to being $1 billion company, which I think we've got a good roadmap to get there, that's a 30 to 1 on your money right there. So we also plan, since we're filed with the SEC, and you can see that on our WeFunder page. If you go to our website, quantumexpeditions.com, there's a link to our WeFunder, and you can read all the details as much as you want. We have to file our accounting and all that, so you can see where all of our money came from, where it goes. But at the end of the day, you can see all the things it takes to get part of the crowd fund. And since we are filed with the SEC, we can't say we will, but our plans are to actually offer dividends, when the time comes. And so we're not there yet. So, right now you're going to have to settle for some merchandise.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Doug, I will leave a link to Quantum Expeditions and the WeFunder and the other information in the show notes below. I really appreciate your insights into sustainable mining in America, in Texas, and I'm optimistic for the future for Bitcoin, and that means Bitcoin mining as well. And you're right, what you mentioned about getting involved on your own. It's really tough to figure out the miners and the electricity costs. You don't have the economies of scale, and so it seems like an opportunity presented where you're able to get involved without doing all the hard work of what you and your team did, the 2 years of research that you did to make sure that you have a profitable business. I'm wishing you and the team all the best moving forward, and thank you so much for the time. I'd love to follow up in the near future.
Thank you very much, Ashton.